Hey guys, this is IXRollOutIX with LEGO Gundam Exia Ignition Mode and Repair 2. Or is it Repair 1? I don't know. I've heard it been called both. But this is Ignition Mode. Now, at the beginning of the second season, Exia shows a bit of his battle damage from the end of the first season in the final battle. And in the second season, after I think 2 years, Setsuna goes into hiding, which is the pilot of the Exia, and comes back in this Gundam that means no business. But he still kicks butt in it, even though it's a 2-year-old mobile suit, and it's in this condition. So you can see that he is missing some skirt armor, the green pieces that were on the sides of his legs. Well, an arm underneath his cloak is completely missing. One of these fins is missing. His sword is completely tattered. And he's got the Terminator deal going on with half a face, half of it with a red eye. I'm not exactly sure what he borrowed that half of a face from, but all I can tell you is it probably wasn't pretty. He's missing all of his beam sabers, his shield, and his Gian blades as well, but now let's take an in-depth look at some of the details on this. His sword. This is what it previously looked like. Long, very sharp and streamlined, compared to this. It's pretty much cut in half. It has some gouges in places, and doesn't look too pretty. This is just a separate piece here, and you can compare the two. Now let's look at the cloak. This fabric I got from an old brown coat, and it looks pretty nice. I mean, you can position it like this high up for whatever reason. So you have some possibilities. You can also rotate it forward and backward if you'd like, but I don't know why you would. It's really just a piece of cloth with this through it. Just put that through. And this piece right here, it kind of blends into the brown, but this piece here goes into where his arm used to peg into place. So, let's take one final look at the head. The head here is just the Exia's head. But this piece here is just sticky tacked on. A bit of cheating, I guess. It's not actually the Exia's face ripped off, it's just a added piece, but I didn't want to go through the trouble of making an entire new head. Let's turn the ignition into the repair. First of all, you take off the Terminator piece on the face and pretty much replace all of his stuff back. And you're left with this. A bladeless, Gian driveless Exia. Which wouldn't make much sense because the Gian drive is his power source and he'd come toppling to the ground without it, but whatever. Now you bring into play these two pieces. A different looking Gian drive and the blade of the Gian sword 2. Now, let's take a look at the differences in the GN drive. This is what they call full burst mode. And it's pretty much just an opened version of this. And it pretty much releases all of the GN particles left inside the GN drive at once, making the Exia pretty powerful. But it's not the same as Trans Am, which is an entirely different story that I don't want to get into. But you just plug that GN drive on. Then you take the blade of the GN Sword 2 and whoop, there's the GN Sword 2. That's pretty much it. And then you're done. The Exia Repair. Now the Exia Repair doesn't show up until the end of Season 2. As you previously saw, let me get this out of the way. As you previously saw, the Exia was pretty beat up at the beginning of Season 1. And he doesn't appear at all throughout the most part of Season 2. Instead, Setsuna, the pilot, of course, pilots the Gundam 00, which is a completely different Gundam that I don't want to get into at the moment. But at the end of Season 2, the 00 is, let's just say, can't be used anymore due to minor formalities. And they take one of the two GN drives that the Gundam 00 has, or rather Setsuna does. That is one of the biggest mysteries in Gundam 00. How does Setsuna get the GN drive, push this giant GN drive all the way from the 00 back to the Ptolemaios, which is the mothership of the Gundams, and put it into the Exia just in time to swoop in with the Repair 2, which is pretty much just the old Exia revamped, to engage in the final battle. Doesn't make much sense. But you're left with this. The Exia Repair, or Repair 2. I'm not exactly sure which one. And it's a lot like the Exia, except just with a fancy-spancy sword and a fancy-spancy GN drive, and without his shield, GN blades, and beam sabers. Now, on the actual model kit, there are a few different details that are changed, but I really can't do that with Legos. There's some extra vents and things all over the place, but whoop-de-doo. So, this is IXRollOutIX, signing off.